Lines of container ships anchored outside U.S. ports from Texas to Maine are backing up, and the largest dock workers strike in nearly 50 years threatens shortages throughout the country. President Biden told reporters today he thinks negotiators are making progress, despite a lack of scheduled negotiations between the International Longshoremen's Association and their employers. Considering the possibility of severe supply chain disruptions impacting everything from groceries to auto parts to medicine and pharmaceuticals, what can we anticipate in the coming days? Join me now to discuss this is Congressman Randy Weber. He serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce and the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. He represents the 14th Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Weber, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you, Tony. Glad to be here.
So you serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and I'm sure you're tracking this very closely, especially given the ports in Texas. What can you tell us?
Well, we are tracking it very closely. District 14, my district in Texas that I'm privileged to represent, has 7 ports. We have more than any other member of Congress in the country. Some have 4, we have 7. So we're watching this with a great degree of interest, obviously. As you know, the union announced today that if they started moving ships from the East Coast to other ports, that those workers there would not unload those ships. You actually hit on it earlier, Tony. The president is MIA. The Taft-Hartley Act, I don't know if, for our listeners, was, I think, 1947. And here's the thing. Congress overrode President Truman's veto. It was that important to them to get this handled. 80-day cooling off period, but yet again, President Biden is missing in action.
Is this not this violent cycle of bad policy? I mean, what we see here, the dock workers, is this not in part due in part to the failed economic policies of the Biden administration that had triggered the inflation that has driven costs so high?
Absolutely it is, because their contract was a 6-year contract. And unfortunately for them, the last 3, almost 4 years now, has been under the Biden-Harris administration. And so times are tough, as you know. Americans, the credit card debt is at the highest it's ever been. 2 out of 3 Americans have their cards maxed out. They can't afford houses. That you have to have a salary of about $120,000 to afford just a modest home. And I can't. We all know what Biden's been doing to fuel prices and grocery prices and those kinds of things. So I can understand why the union, when it comes time to renegotiate their contract, would say we've got to have more money. Bidenomics is killing them.
So in the meantime, the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration creates this problem as they stand on the sidelines. But this is going to have a domino effect, is it not? Because so many other industries are affected by what comes off of those ships.
Well, absolutely it will. And of course, the Biden-Harris group, they don't care about trade. They don't care about America being preeminent in anything, much less exporting energy or goods across the big pond, as we like to say, or receiving them into our country. This is about election year, Tony. They're not going to do anything that would upset the apple cart. They've always stood for unions. They've never actually done anything that would actually help the economy in terms of shipping in and out. And that goes for LNG, which we have a lot of in our district. This is just yet another example of where they're missing in action.
Congressman Weber, okay, so they're aligned with big labor, the dock workers, but consumers are going to suffer as a result of this. How long does this drag out, and what could be the political implications for that, as well as the economic implications?
Well, we hope it's over soon, because we don't want people to suffer. We would think that the political implications, if the American public catches on, this could be handled by the Biden administration if they had the guts to do it. Then this doesn't have to drag on like they're dragging it on. They could get involved, like I said, with the Taft-Hartley Act, because it was put in place for that very reason. And yet, as you pointed out, they hang with big labor. They don't care about consumers. That's why You think of their economy. That's why they've had the highest inflation in a long time. That's why they want to give away free college tuition. Doesn't matter that I went to college, me and my beautiful bride and our 4 boys, U of H graduates, that we paid for our own college. No, 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 no. It's about government giveaways. What can they give away to win this election? And it does not matter who pays for it. If it's you, if it's me, it doesn't matter. They're going to make sure that they get reelected.
Congressman Webb, I want to switch gears a little bit on that topic of government giveaways. Another topic that you are very familiar with there in Texas, I know, because my state borders with yours in Louisiana, hurricanes that have come through, FEMA and their response to these storms. Of course, we now have what could be the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history. And FEMA is, according to some of your colleagues, is MIA, not there. FEMA saying they need more money, but yet they've given about $300 million in grants to organizations on the issue of immigrant settlement, not addressing disaster relief.
Yeah, 300 million in 2023, if I've got it right. In 2024, I think it's more like 600 million. They're more, and you know this. This administration is putting illegals on airplanes with no credentials. Now, Tony, you and I cannot get on an airplane without having an ID and going through the vetting. And yet this administration, along with FEMA, cares more about helping illegals in this country than they do American citizens. They're crying about not having enough funding. You heard the director of FEMA make that comment. And yet they've been giving their money to illegals. What did they expect?
Yeah, and I know that firsthand. As much as I travel out of my home city of Baton Rouge, I know the TSA agents, and I've had conversation with them about the illegals that have been put on planes by federal authorities with no ID other than, get this, a voter registration card. That was their only ID that they had. It's a double whammy in terms of law and order. There is the president, others suggesting that they may call Congress back in to allocate more money for FEMA. How can that be justified, as we were just discussing, that they've been redirecting money through things that are, quite frankly, not a part of FEMA's mission?
Yeah, what we ought to be doing is shutting down the White House's budget and using that money to help these hurricane victims. It is incredible the lack of focus that this administration has on everyday working American citizens. They're intent on bringing all these people in. I fly out of Houston Hobby Airport, Southwest Airlines, Tony, when I fly, just like, we fly frequently, like you said. And I've seen planes that come up to Houston Hobby from south, whether it's Harlingen, Brownsville, whether it's whatever one of us flies up to Houston Hobby, and I see them get off the plane, Tony, we're talking about male immigrants, usually 7, 8, 9, 10, or 12 of them, same color bag. They get off with a document, a folder, same color folder in their hand. They get into the airport, they look around, they're kind of disoriented for it first, and then they decide where to go. These are the immigrants, the illegals that Biden and company is putting into the United States. And I don't have to tell you this. How many young girls have been raped and lost their lives because of Joe Biden's willingness to bring the enemy right into our camp?
I want to play a clip of Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. This was his comments yesterday aboard Air Force One en route to Greenville, South Carolina. Play clip number 9.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season and what is imminent.
Congressman Randy Weber, is this not time to reveal to the American people? I mean, we saw an assassination attempt almost succeed on former President Donald Trump, and we saw, as early reports have come out, of really just the chaos within the Secret Service. Primarily, I would say the evidence points to a prioritization of DEI as opposed to quality, qualifications, and efficiency. Here we see Americans suffering still, days after this hurricane, FEMA saying we don't have enough money. they don't have enough personnel, but they've diverted money and personnel to the immigration issue. Isn't this time the American people make a decision on which way they want our government to go?
It absolutely is, Tony. Now think about how crazy this is. Alexander Mayorkas said for the whole 3.5 years gone by, almost 4, he said the border is operationally secure. You remember him saying that,
right.
Lying through his teeth. And yet, so why did they feel the need to spend, what was it, 324 million in 23 and almost 650 million in 24 for an operationally secure border? Gosh, that doesn't make sense to me. They can stand there, Tony, and lie through their teeth to the American public because that's their agenda, is to bring more illegals in here to vote. You pointed out the fact they have a voter certificates or voter registration, I think it was. And so they're trying to get where they get more population in the states, the blue states, so that they can take over the election on presidential day.
I certainly hope the American people see what is happening before their very eyes. Congressman Randy Webb, we're out of time. Always great to see you. Thanks for joining us.